Okay, hey Fabio, super excited to host you here on our new episode, Leaders Cut the BS. I'm particularly excited to be speaking with you because you are someone who has incredible experience in litigation. I think you're someone who solves big problems for important people, and you connect very well as a human. I think it's all over your profile. I'm also very impressed that you were as the Chambers of Europe, you ranked band one in dispute resolution. There's so much about you and your credentials, but the best person to introduce himself, I guess, is you, Fabio. So for the audience who don't know you, who is Fabio Trevisan or Trevisan?
Trevisan. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for hosting me. First of all, it's a pleasure to be with you and to chat. I am a lawyer. I'm just a lawyer. I arrived in Luxembourg when I was 7. Went to school here. I'm not Luxembourgish. I got adopted by this country, by this great country, which was very, very kind to me. And I then, after studying in Italy and in New York, came back and started my career as a lawyer and embraced indeed litigation, which I have been doing all my life. And litigation has many aspects. It is many people see it as an adversarial process. I see it more as a dispute resolution process, and that is what the fascinating part to me is the human factor, is understanding why people get to litigation, why are we getting to
Mm,
court, and isn't there any other way to resolve the dispute? And is there any other way I can help, especially in resolving that dispute and maybe trying to create some value in terms of stop to destroying what is many times the value that is destroyed by people's focus being driven towards the litigation, meaning the past, and not building the future. So I see myself as a facilitator of creating value in order for people to stop fighting and focus on their growth and not on their past, which might be bitter, which might be full of resentment sometimes, but we all need to move on, find a solution, and then just close the chapter. So that's what I like to say I like to do.
I love this, Fabio. I love the human part. You speak about very deep archetypes of life. It's all over. You can see the deepest story about looking back, and this will stop you moving forward, and the bitterness and grace. So it's very deep. So thanks for sharing. It's very insightful that you focus on the value and moving forward. So. Let's zoom in. Also, you're engaged as now a partner. You've been there for a while, around 15 years at BSP. So tell us a bit for the audience who don't know what you do at work in specific. So what do you spend most of your time thinking about at work?
Right. So first of all, 15 years is only the period after which we founded with other 8 partners BSB, but I'm doing this since way longer, I'm afraid to say.
Wow.
I started back in 93, so that's it was a long journey. So what I like to do is, first of all, to create an environment at the firm which is as positive and as easy to work with as I can imagine. Meaning that when you come to work, you should be glad that you're meeting your work family, where you can really enjoy yourself, where you can learn, where you can thrive, where you can think about what you is it something that I really like to do, and sometimes it has happened to me that I've taken 1 or 2 associates saying, listen, maybe this is not exactly the path that you want to embrace, and after some years, this difficult conversation has turned to be the best thing that could ever happen to them. So what I try to do, and it's it's a people's business. So we were speaking about the clients, but in our environment, the most important part is the human factor, meaning the resources that work with me, the people that work with me, my partners, my associates, my
Mm,
coworkers, and that is the most important part of the journey, to try and get
mm,
people to to find what they really want to do and then to do it in the best possible
mm,
way as a team. That's another very important part,
mm,
to work together, to work
mm,
towards the same goal, which is not always easy because there are always politics. That's human nature.
mm.
And
Yeah.
the idea is to try and create this environment where it is not competitive, but it is the fight to get the best value, the best
Mm,
work for the client. And that is, if it is seen as a common goal, that's what moves the whole organizations towards
mm.
excellence.
Wow. I love it. Again, very strong focus on humans and relationships and people, because I think you have something very unique and key is that you truly understand that going deep into these dynamics, what motivates people is actually the biggest unlocker to value. So that's a lot of wisdom, Fabio. I can feel it. That's really, really good stuff. So okay, and what do you feel is the part of your role that surprises people the most?
So, what the more, of course, you build up on your experience, the more you build up on your experiences, and in this, I can speak for this job of being a lawyer, is the fact that you can see the have an helicopter view, that you can really not be drawn into the details, but stay on top. And of
Mm,
course, the team is on top of the details, but I want to stay on top of the matter. I want to make
mm,
sure that I can bring value again for the client in order and to drive in the right direction and not micromanage what my team is doing. That
mm,
destroys the drive of people to work on a matter. That destroys their growth, their individual growth. I want to stay on top and make sure that we drive in the bigger direction, looking forward, looking ahead.
mm,
What's the next move? And try to
mm,
anticipate that next move. And that is sometimes what surprises clients, because they only see it with a short term view. They
mm,
see their immediate result. They cannot look forward because many times
mm,
they are too much focused on negative sentiments, and they want to
mm,
see immediate results. They want to see the other parties punished, which is not going to happen. And let's
mm,
face it. And there's no divine intervention which will strike them down. So we
mm,
need to look at the longer game, and we need to make
mm,
sure we remain focused. And if that vision is not shared, which happens, then I prefer to step down, because then again, I cannot bring real value. And it has happened in my career that people had came back and said, "Well, you were right. We were only focusing on the immediate
mm.
satisfaction, which is the wrong approach."
Wow. I love that. So that's incredible. So basically it's even like in cases, like it sounds like you're saying, so even if, for example, we feel they're at wrong, we feel the other parties are wrong. So I love first of all the management where you're like on top to see that's the visionary part where you have a team, you trust them, and that's a great environment and culture. But also for the client, it's like, yeah, we can fight very hard to get an immediate now. The probability is low, but and then you can create an enemy, you can create strong competition, you can create a lot of hassle now. Why not just a bit of grace now, and this could unlock so much more like multiplication in the future, and you'll also be more energized about it. And it's also energy. It's like it's how you operate with the momentum of focusing on the big picture, like you said. So amazing, amazing, amazing stuff.
Yeah, right. You said it. So, sometimes you need to look at further down the line and maybe accept to lose a battle to win the war.
Exactly. I think that's exactly that, right. Amazing. So at some point, walk us through also a normal week. Like let's zoom in a bit into a normal week for you, your team. Where do you feel work tends to pile up in your workflows?
So in our line of business, you cannot predict when there is going to be a peak. Like the
Mm,
accountants know that tax season is coming. They
Mm,
were going to be overloaded. That's definitely not what happens in our line of business. You
mm,
don't know when two or three or four new litigations are going to start, and you don't
mm,
know when it's going to come. So you really need to manage your deadlines. And we have both a work stream of long-term deadlines. For example, big cases which require long time preparing a hearing or a long time preparing simply the submissions to the court, and you have a deadline for that, so you can really easily progress at the pace that you want. And you want to make sure that you involve the clients, that you prepare and share the work as much as possible going forward, so that the deadline will be respected and not at the last minute. On top of that, you have the urgent matters which can pile up or not, and maybe two or three can pile up at the same time. So you need to really be organized in terms of anticipating those deadlines, which
mm,
make sure that you can meet the deadlines that you. And that's the very much the difficulty in our profession, that there is no flow that can be controlled. If
mm,
somebody is sued for an urgent matter to get an injunction, you have to be there, you have to be hands on, and you have to you accelerate the pace, because you don't have time, and because there is a court hearing coming up next
yeah,
week, and there's no
yeah,
way you're going to be able not to be fully prepared for it. Then many things can happen. A settlement can happen, but you cannot count on it. Maybe the hearing can be postponed, but again, you cannot count on it. So you need
mm,
to be prepared. At the same time, you have the other layer of the normal stuff which goes on, which is scheduled, which is absolutely known. So you have to continuously work with those two different streamlines, and you have to make sure that you have enough time just in case. And that's why it's very well known. Lawyers are overwhelmed. They go out,
mm.
they stay hours. There's no weekends. And yes, that is definitely things that happen. And in my experience, the explanation.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
understood. I completely understand, and sometimes it goes all. Yeah, you have these three litigations coming up this month,
exactly.
so it's the one of those tough weeks. But maybe in another regular month, it's like there's not a lot happening, so it's like
Can
balancing out
be.
all
So that
that.
that's why you need really then to take advantage of that time
Mm,
to do some strategy, to do
mm,
some maybe meetings with the team, because you have
yeah,
to always keep up with new case law, with new
mm,
legislation coming in. So you need, and you also want to write some articles. You want to make sure that you get some visibility. You want the team
mm,
also to travel a bit, to go to conferences. You want to do some business development. So all of this
mm.
needs together and coordinated. And that's the challenging part, but it's the fun part as well.
Interesting. So, in terms of what do you feel? So that's maybe out of the box, but what's the kind of task that you feel quietly eats up time, but nobody really questions?
Nobody really questions.
Yes.
So you have the administrative part, of course. We need to put in our time. We need to look at the preparation of the statement of fees. That's it's boring, but there's no way out of it. It's a business. We're a normal business. We have to have it run. Of course, we have teams helping, and fortunately so. But we know the case. We know the client. We need to review whatever statement comes out before it gets out. So that is something that it needs to be done. And yeah, nobody questions that it must be done, but
Mm.
nobody likes to do it.
Yeah, of course. So, and when you have a really one of those very difficult weeks, like think about your feeling, like you have all these very busy week. So, what usually breaks first?
What breaks first? It's always that unexpected, can be a letter, summons, or nervousness by a client who received
Mm,
a threatening um, notice. It can
mm,
be regulatory, can be from another party, and that creates, of course, nervousness. So you
mm,
have to really be on top of it, and bring as much as possible some explanation, some calming down, some
Yeah.
um, managing
Mm.
management of that. So that I would say is the beauty also of our line of business, because you never know when you come up in the morning what's going to hit your desk.
Mm. Yeah, I know what you mean because as an entrepreneur, I understand what you mean is like this, it's crisis, it's like, it's very tough news and there's a lot of emotions, right? So, and you have to handle you have to have a lot of EQ to handle the emotion, navigate, have the person express it out loud. And, there's no right and wrong. It's just an emotion. And then when the emotion is out, now it clears to the mind. Okay, here are the options. Practically, we're going to move to a practical conversation. So here's what there are options available. Here's what we're going to do, and that calms a bit. But it could be intense. I can imagine.
It is always
Yeah,
intense. It is always intense. And if it's not intense, you can get bored. So at the end of the day, it's what drives us. It's the adrenaline. And as you say, the
wow,
more you rise to this, the more you rise to the challenge. And that's what
wow.
makes you grow professionally. And that's what the young associates need to be involved in from the beginning, because they need to learn fast. And that is something which I always try to do, to put them in the water. How can you learn to swim if you're not thrown in the water?
Mm. Wow, I love that. Fabio, I feel the associates working with you are super lucky really to have this mindset leading
I
them
hope
and,
so.
this character. Yeah, amazing. So,
Yep.
we're gonna focus a bit on AI here. Okay. So at some point,
Right.
AI, it's all over the social media and a lot of law firms are speaking about it. But I'm curious to know, at some point, did you see AI or automation come as a possible fix to these tough weeks or to this challenge of handling, like a fix to your regular workflow?
It's not a fix, it's a tool.
Mm,
It's something that in certain situations can help, can help you be
mm,
more productive, can help you to be to manage more tasks at the same time. Certainly. But you cannot rely on AI. That is a
mm,
given. And I have seen people relying and unfortunately paying the consequences,
mm,
because it is not a precise tool. It is
mm,
something that is very useful for transformation. It is very useful if you want to have a very standard first draft, and you can, and if you can point the machine to the right set of documents, to the right data. Because
mm,
if you think that the machine is going to find out there the right information, that's the worst you can do. The
mm,
machine will not. It will find stuff which is totally not relevant and not make the difference. So if you can really tune your tool, and it must be your internal tool, because otherwise you're spreading in
mm,
confidential data, which is the most disastrous thing that
mm,
you can do in our profession. If you have your right tool, which is inside, which is a closed box inside the organization, and you can really feed it and indicate where to get the data, and to make make a nutshell of whatever you need, that can
yeah,
be useful, because you know where the information is coming from. You can
yeah,
control the source. If you ask a generic tool, it's a disaster. and
mm,
and unfortunately, we still see some younger associates doing that. We have a policy which of course prevents them from doing it, but unfortunately, it's the temptation is still there. And what is distracting to me is that the younger generation is proving to us by doing it that we don't need them. Because if the AI indeed is the answer, then we don't need to train people, which I'm
mm,
against, of course. And I'm a big believer in, on the contrary, helping them to learn, and not with AI. They can use AI a little later, or they can use AI for very boring tasks. Like, I have 1,000 contracts. I need to know for every contract the dates and how many shares have been sold. That's fine. In 5 minutes, I have my answer. Otherwise, you will lose a lot of time, and it's more precise. So
mm,
you really need to make sure for what you're using AI, not for drafting any summons, not for drafting any briefs. That, in my experience, is absolutely not useful. On the contrary, it can be dangerous.
Mm, mm, mm. Interesting. That's a lot of insight. So it's like I love your thesis about, AI is there to augment us, not replace us. So that's clear. The second
Yeah.
is that don't use the generic stuff because confidentiality. You can't use Claude or ChatGPT because
No way.
you're under NDAs, so it doesn't work. But in the same
Doesn't.
time, AI can be used in the right ways, where it's not just it thinks for you, but it's like you're also saying it's training an associate. So it's like bringing like an AI tool. So it's like an AI associate, like a junior associate, be like, okay, look, we're going to train you. Here's what we want you to do. We want you to go there. We want you to do this exactly. Come do this. And now when you're trained, okay, now we can work together. So you have the same approach, which
Exactly.
is great.
And that's the way the new generation should be using it. We should
Yeah.
tell them, go out and train the AI, but of course with our help and of course
Yeah.
with our directions, but not simply asking the question I asked to my associate to the machine, because then
Yeah.
I don't need I don't need an intermediary
Yeah.
simply
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
type in the prompt.
Yeah, yeah, understood. So super clear. So what did you try, Fabio, and didn't really work the way you hoped in that space? Could be AI, could be tools, could be processes, could be policies.
No, I think in the AI is a learning process, and we are all learning, of course, going forward. And what has not, I mean, what the promise was that the AI would replace, for example, a bunch of workforce of people. I don't think that that's true at all.
Mm,
I think we really need to reconsider that. It is certainly, as you say, an augmented power
mm,
of making from the information we have something useful quicker. So it brings value to the clients by definition, because if we spend less time, we build less time as well. So it creates value also for the clients. And that
mm,
is in a way working for certain kind of tasks. In
yeah.
litigation, for example, what
Mm,
it can be useful is simply on extracting facts, um, feeding the machine with all the evidence, and telling the machines, where do you find inconsistencies? What this witness is saying
mm,
this, can you find me something that contradicts what this
mm,
witness is saying? That can be useful, because then you might miss, the human eye might miss a detail which the machine will not miss. And that then, of course, that data allows us to better prepare a defense or to better prepare a strategy. And that is definitely where there is an added value, but it must be used wisely, and it must not be used simply as replacing a team, which will never do so.
mm, mm,
And that is something that I've seen people doing without much success. And fortunately, it's starting to become now the standard, that it
mm.
needs to be carefully tuned, and it needs to be carefully used in a very, very thoughtful way. That's the
Interesting.
difficulty.
I love that. So two things you said that are very interesting. So I'm not sure also, Fabio, if you as a firm, you're using one of those tools of
We
Harvey,
are
Legora, Clio. You
we're using
are?
Legora, which yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
okay, cool. And the other thing is, you said something that's been mind-boggling to me, and I'm curious to hear your wisdom on it. About, if AI is supposed to reduce your time, so but the industry is built on billing hours, billable hours. So
Yes.
it's kind of counterintuitive or contradicting a bit. Not contradicting. I mean, it's kind of the industry isn't incentivized to reduce their time. Like, why, if I would do something, that I would be charged $1,000 euros for, why would I use AI and charge 500? There's something here that doesn't fully click. But I know, I've seen the stats that even if time has gone down for firms, the client is still paying the same or more. So I'm curious to know your thoughts on this,
Yeah.
and also if you can zoom in a bit on, when you use Legora, when you try to, what was missing when you tried to fix something specifically in litigation, or where do you see like is the limits there when you try to
Yeah.
use that?
So, so, so it's interesting what you say, because that's the common perception. AI will make it less attractive as a business because you will bill less hours.
Mm,
I don't think so. I think it allows us to bill better hours. It
Mm,
meaning that the quality of our work will grow because
mm,
um, we won't be lost in the details of going through lots of papers and doing unproductive stuff. We will be able to focus our knowledge, our experience on the real strategy,
mm,
on speaking to the client and determining with the client where we want to go and what's the best way forward, something the machine will never be able to do. And we
mm,
will be able to advise them how to behave based on raw data, which will be available to us quickly and which will be available to us in a very concise way so that we won't miss anything that was in the data. Because if you have a discovery and you get a terabyte of data, you and only human eye goes through it, you will miss something. With
mm,
AI, if it's properly tuned, you won't miss anything. And so you will make sure that you will get the right data, the right information which you exactly need for the question that is in front of you. And
mm,
you will then to better advise the client, who will then even be able to pay more because you will create more
mm.
value. So I don't think it's
Ah.
a question of quality.
Yeah, I love that. So you're the first one. I think we could quote you on that. So it's like bill better hours because AI gives the client more value, and that's why they would be paying more because there's more. I love that. It's fresh perspective. And zooming in on this Legora or like what you've tried. So
Yes.
let's say you know what when you're trying to fix or so you're trying to improve this workflow or automate or whatever. What was missing when you tried to fix it, or what was the limits of the tool that you felt like I hope this was there or this was missing when I tried to fix to
So
do this
the
better.
good part with Legora is that we work with them, and every time we have some feedback, they
Mm,
fix it. So for us, it was one limitation was big limitation for Luxembourg. Luxembourg is a small country, so it's a small
mm,
market. Of
mm,
course, you have generic products which are available, but which are not always um, designed for the local needs. Now, Luxembourg is a weird jurisdiction because we are based on French, Belgian law, and some pieces of German law.
mm,
So you cannot rely on one set of law. You need to make sure that the machine goes and finds the right set of legislation.
mm.
Sorry, and
Sorry.
you want to make sure that you tune it to go focus on the local case law, not on the French case law, even if many times the civil code is basically the same, but there are
Mm,
other nuances which the machine will not get. And so what we were able to do slowly is to make sure that we we are able easily to point the machine to the right sources and to limit those sources without having the temptation for the machine, which is very easy, to add some French perspective, because
mm,
you find the same numbered articles of the civil code or whatever it is. It's always in French, so everything is similar, and those nuances needed to be identified, and we needed to make sure that we got an answer which is properly relevant for Luxembourg, not relevant for France, not relevant for Belgium, because there's also this with Belgium, for example, if you look at corporate law. But many things are real. Sometimes you have few concepts which are the same and some concepts which are really different. And
mm,
so the not able to really understand those nuances. And that it gets dangerous. Yep.
mm,
And it's therefore very important to make sure that you ask the machine to cite exactly for every paragraph where it got that information, where it comes from, and then to make sure to fine tune it and to eliminate certain sources in order to pin down to the right answer applicable and not applicable in another jurisdiction, which is neighboring and very, very, very similar. So
Yeah.
that is stuff you need dialogue with her to how to direct the machine, the software, sorry, to go and pick the right source and tell you what it did also as well, because otherwise you don't know, even by reading the answer, if it's right or wrong, because you don't know where it got the information. So that was one of the biggest challenges.
Interesting. And I'm not sure it was resolved, but it sounds like it was. But also, Luxembourg has a very interesting, it attracts a lot of corporates and a lot of, companies in Europe to set their corporate structure there. So it has a very unique, interesting, like you said and described. So, but just curious, like if that one process ran smoother, it could be though this one, but if it was solved, then it's fine. It's not this one, but if the process of if you see another workflow in your firm like litigation or this, if that runs smoother, maybe it has some AI in it. What would that free up your team to do?
So in litigation, it's what we use AI a lot for, and it's different for the corporate department. It's different for the funds department. And I don't want to step on their toes because they have their own workflows. But what we work, I mean, every piece of work we do is transnational. It's cross border. So of course the local judicial language is French, and
Mm,
whatever we do with international clients, we need to translate. So one thing that has dramatically improved in our workflow is it's a simple thing, which is translation. But AI and the progresses that AI did in this field in the last few years is just phenomenal. And so for us to prepare a piece of work and then translate it, it takes a few minutes. And for the client, it makes a huge difference. And it makes a lot of difference for us as well, because in the past, we needed to have some associate do the translation by hand, which first of all took a lot of time, was more it was costly for the client, and it was on the other hand boring
mm,
but needed. And
yeah.
today that's gone, and we can immediately give to the client the finished product with all the details in a good English. And usually, yes, there are some nuances but it's gotten so good that the, the corrections that we need sometimes to
Mm,
bring, which happens, are really really minimal. So that is something that has changed quite a lot. Then there might be other instances where we need to find in a large volume of evidence the right contract, the right piece of document, or the pattern of documents, or for example, to extract a timeline, which that is
mm,
another thing that in litigation is very important, to position the facts on a certain timeline. And
mm,
so it really lays out for you, and now it starts to be also graphical. It took some time to do a graphical timeline, which is very, very useful to
mm.
immediately explain to the court, what happened, when it happened, and what's the incidence. So all of this has been as you see, very mechanical, very basic stuff, but which
Mm.
makes your life much, much easier.
I love it. I love this timeline. It's also like a story because the human brain
Yeah.
trusts stories. And, in the beginning was this, and then he did this, and then so it makes trust. So I love that. But what if like you had a magic wand? Like what still is you feel is like if this is done, it could unlock a lot of time for you and a lot of productivity and profits for your team. Like if you had a magic wand, what would the AI do that it can do now? It's not doing now as much as you would like it to.
Yeah. The problem is that if this magic wand existed, um, we might be more out of a job than we think we actually are. So I have this idea that the machine, the software cannot replace the human perception, the human synthesis, and the fact that you need to take into consideration who your client is, what their goals are,
Mm,
how they are operating in their own world, how they need to interact with other people in their organization, and what is the world in which we are having this litigation. what does the future look like? Because you might win a litigation but lose a lot because this might disrupt completely a certain industry
Mm,
related to that client. So you really need to understand the whole picture. And I believe that the software will never be able to do that.
mm, mm,
We will always need to be the decision makers. We will always use the
mm,
tool, which is going to get better for sure, but it's never going to replace the
yeah.
emotional um, part where you must understand
Mm,
where that piece of litigation is situated and everything
mm.
that's around it.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. Amazing, Fabio. We're getting to the end sections here, end section. So, thinking about everything you've seen, is there any specific workflow habit or meeting where leaders should just cut the BS because it looks productive but really isn't? So, this is the place where we quote you. Feel free to vent out, to let it out. If you want to say cut the BS, like feel free to say whatever. But yeah, what do you think?
Well, cut the BS. I think what you hear a lot, and I don't hear it amongst colleagues, I hear it amongst people outside the legal business, is
Mm,
our lawyers are going to be replaced. We
mm,
in a few years we won't need them anymore. That's a deep misunderstanding of what we do.
mm,
It's a deep um, misjudgment because
mm,
again, uh, I think the most important part that we bring is the understanding
mm,
of the situation and the fact that we can accompany the client through the process. And in order to get the best outcome, it's not simply what argument do I need to put in my brief. It's also much more determine with the client what the goal is, what the best
mm.
outcome is. Maybe the best outcome is not to win outright. Maybe the best outcome is to find a solution which is
Yeah.
in between, because you have, for example, to take into consideration the time it will take, and
Mm,
that time might be destructive of other factors. So it's not always winning for winning, because if you win and on the other side you have nothing to enforce against, then well, you didn't achieve much.
mm,
So the victory on paper will not help the client, and that again the software cannot take into consideration. You need to understand if this
mm,
litigation is taking too much time, and that's based only on your experience. It's written
yeah,
nowhere. Then you need to take that factor of time into consideration and put it on the table and discuss with the client what is the best outcome given those factors, which
yeah,
again are factors that we know as humans based on our experience, based on our local knowledge, and
yeah,
what software will not be of any help. So to me, the bullshit is really lawyers are going to be replaced.
yeah. I couldn't agree more. And that's amazing. And one last question for you. So, if you could give one piece of advice to leaders dealing with the same thing or the same journey or career path you're going through or situation, what would that advice be?
Take care of your people. Make sure that the
Mm,
environment is not a toxic environment. Make sure that
mm,
people are happy to work there and that they feel compelled to do the best they can do, and that when it's done, they feel gratified and that they
mm,
feel that they have done achieved something, and that therefore, first of all, they would like to stay, and second, they want to grow more. And then the next part is make them grow, make them responsible, make sure that the team is consistent and grows together, and avoids internal competition, which is the worst that
mm,
I have seen, because it destroys a lot of
mm,
good, a lot of good energy. So
mm,
it's business. Without people, we're no one. I mean, I can not have built a law firm without lots of people, partners, first of all,
yeah,
associates. So all of this, to me, and I'm speaking for, of course, for my business,
yeah.
it's based how you interact inside your organization. It's very important.
Wow. Fabio, super happy. Thank you so much for sharing this great wisdom and knowledge. And I now I understand why you're you're so good at what you do and ranked in the top because you truly understand something so deeply about the nature of reality, I think. This is a lot of wisdom. So thank you so much for sharing. I
Thank
think
you.
if we spend like a week together, there will be so much more wisdom and cases, I'm sure. But excited for this, and hopefully we chat again, maybe meet in Luxembourg or
Sure.
somewhere else. But yeah, any lasting thoughts you
Anytime.
want to mention?
No, thank you very much for having us. Very, very interesting conversation. Thank you for your very good questions, and happy to be again on your show anytime.
Amazing. Thank you, Fabio. Thank you. We'll talk soon.